بیشتر بهتر از زن است. مهرم از دل کی برون کنم، برگو بی مهر تو چون کنم. تو گردش جهان و دور آسمان بپاس، نور ایزدی همیشه رهنمای ماست. مهر تو چون شد پیشم، نور از تو نیست اندیشم. در راه تو کی ارزشی دارد این جان ما، پاینده باد خاک ایران ما.
Dear listeners, Andishe Nik or Good Thought is the name of our YouTube channel and other podcast platforms from which we present you the latest political analysis about Iran. Please support us to bring freedom, peace, and stability to Iran again. Today's program is called Ayatollah's Tactical Retreat. With pressures escalating on Ayatollah's corrupt regime in Iran, domestically and internationally, they seem more desperate than ever to get away with the dire consequences of their evil misdeeds. From international relation point of view, Iran deal has stalled due to several reasons. First and foremost, Ayatollahs wanted IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, to be removed from U.S. Foreign Terrorist Organization list. IRGC and its affiliates have been all over the economy of the entire country, and unless they are taken out from the U.S. terrorist list, lifting the sanctions has no benefit for the regime. Furthermore, a coherent movement by Iranian dissidents and diaspora fought against Iran deal, to send a message to the international community not to enrich a tyrannical and maniacal cleric system who brutally kills its own people. On economic fronts, sanctions has hit the foreign currency inflow drastically that used to feed Ayatollah's proxies, destabilizing Middle East. International trade has shrunk to smuggling oil to Chinese teapot privately owned refineries with considerable discount compared to market prices. Printing unsupported money has turned into a normal practice to pay salaries, leading to an uncontrollable inflation. Food prices are going through the roof. Only on one item of essential food basket, bread price has skyrocketed more than hundreds of folds. Therefore, all the signs are implying a huge civil uprising is on the way. Besides, Israel's pledge to hit the head of Ayatollah's octopus sounds very serious this time, as Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said, bearing in mind the formation of a newly right-wing coalition government in Israel may not be a far-fetched near future. Soviet communist system as well as Chinese Communist Party have always been a model for Ayatollah's reigns of power. Regime officially calls this policy looking toward the east, saving them when they got stuck in middle of many socio-economic crises. History has shown when communists couldn't achieve their ambitious domestic or imperialistic goals, a tactical retreat has always been the last resort. The 7,000 Cadre Conference, convened in 1962 by Mao Zedong, in China is an example of how the clerics are determined for a tactical retreat. In that meeting, Mao self-criticized himself, failing great leap forward campaign that led to the death of tens of millions of Chinese during the Great China Famine. He semi-retired himself to the second rank in CCP and let the state run under Deng Xiaoping. He returned back to power just shortly after 4 years in 1966 with cultural revolution and brutally removed his competition and secured power till the end of his life. Premier Li Keqiang also has recently convened 100,000 cadre teleconference seeking ways to save Chinese sinking economy by suggesting coexistence COVID policy confronting Xi Jinping's zero COVID policy and draconian lockdowns that has resulted in the death of millions of Chinese people and an economic implosion. While none of them are talking about human rights abuse in Xinjiang, Tibet, and Falun Gong practitioners, both are running this rivalry of so-called moderate versus hardliners to let the moderates secure power and pull the wool over the eyes of international community, and the US to take it easy on CCP imperialistic ambitions and save Chinese economy. Now the question is, would Ayatollah's corrupt regime possibly follow his big brother CCP footsteps based on the principle of looking toward East policy? Would they start running a rivalry of so-called moderate versus hardliners and help moderates take the reins of power to deceive US and international community, to remove IRGC from US foreign terrorist organization list, lift the sanctions, release billions of frozen funds, and help them to get away with their evil misdeeds? See, the problem is, it's not been a long time since clerics first used the same tactic in 1997 and 2001, leading to millions of votes to so-called moderate side and candidate of that time, Khatami. However, during the uprising of truck drivers in Iran in 2017, we heard for the first time Iranian people chanting, "Hey moderates, hey hardliners, we know your charade. Your time is over." Therefore, so-called moderate side of the Ayatollah's corrupt regime needs to make an alliance with one of the famous Iranian diaspora dissidents member and sell the old facade with a new face and name called Alliance of Iranians. In 2010, when regime manipulated the results of the presidential election in favor of Ahmadinejad, a semi-alliance got formed between Mousavi, the so-called moderate candidate, and Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. When Mr. Pahlavi confirmed in VOA Farsi program he is keen to work with Mousavi and Karoubi, who had lost due to the election fraud. While such alliance never got formed due to house arrest of Mousavi and Karoubi, nevertheless, the corrupt cleric regime, disinformation and propaganda machine planted the seeds successfully, which led to doubts amongst dissidents and diaspora why son of Shah of Iran would like to work with people who were ex-fanatic revolutionaries and removed his father from power. In 2017, truck drivers' civil uprising, a new Iranian political group was formed in the US called Farashgard, who cozied up to Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi very quickly. They got a lot of credit in no time from His Excellency. Farashgard DNA was very similar to ex-moderate fraction of Islamic Republic in Iran. Even their members used to work in election campaign for so-called moderate Mousavi and Karoubi in 2010. What Ayatollah's corrupt regime desperately needs today is the credit for the moderate wing to get the attention and subsequently the support of Iranian people. Farashgard could simply facilitate to get such credit for them, based on the fact that they have good relation with both sides, i.e. so-called moderates and Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. There has been a reciprocating messages recently in the news. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi addressed Iranian people in June 3, 2022. In his speech, he sympathized with Iranians who are extremely suffering from Islamic regime's expansionist and destabilizing policies in Middle East, resulting in sanctions and poverty in Iran. He also, for the first time, referred to two recent achievements of Iranian diaspora dissidents' political acts, i.e. Justice for Ukraine, PS 752 airline that was shot down by IRGC missiles, and Shame campaign that unmasks the Islamic Republic blood-washing organization, an apologist group called NAYAK. Up until this time, we don't know why Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi and his followers never got behind these two campaigns. However, some believe Farashgard might have advised His Excellency so to avoid damaging any future plausible mutual cooperation with the so-called moderate wing of corrupt Islamic Republic. Just the day after His Excellency's speech on June 3rd, Khamenei, the leader of corrupt Islamic Republic, delivered a new speech on 4th June, emphasizing it was the monarchy system that stepped up in France after French Revolution, implying this might occur in near future. The content and the timing of both speeches are alarming for Iranian freedom-seeking people. If this alliance is formed, it would definitely help Ayatollahs in their tactical retreat strategy by enabling Islamic Republic leader Khamenei self-criticize himself, step down to second rank, and let the new faces of so-called moderate and Mr. Pahlavi take the reins of power temporarily, exactly based on 1962 Mao's playbook. This would also help Biden's administration to quickly lift the sanctions, release frozen assets, and normalize their relation with newly formed government. However, as Mao returned to power on 1966 by cultural revolution, Ayatollah's hardliners and IRGC will return back to power in 4 years' time, more or less, thanks to the removal of the sanctions, return of the frozen assets that newly formed government provided for them. Then they pursue the old expansionist and destabilizing policies such as developing nuclear weapons, waging endless war in Middle East, and depriving Iranians from a normal life. Same pattern of tactical retreat can be found in Soviet's playbook and history during Gorbachev, as described by Ion Mihai Pechepa in his famous book called Disinformation. Food for thought. Are Ayatollahs going to follow footsteps of their big brothers, CCP and Soviets, for a tactical retreat? Could they resell this outdated tactique to Iranian freedom-seeking nation? If not, what else does the cleric system need to run this charade one more time? Could anyone helping Ayatollahs to get away with the consequences of the crimes against Iranians be called a patriot? We leave the answers to Iranian youth and to the listeners of our program. Good thought will rebuild Iran again.